Hey, welcome back to part 8 of the full stack trading app tutorial. Today, by request of Market Rocks on Twitter, who messaged me, we're going to be coding the opening range breakout strategy. So he's linked out this article on Warrior Trading, which describes this strategy. And there's also a bunch of YouTube videos on this. If you do opening range breakout, you'll see there's a bunch of people covering this strategy, the ORB strategy. And if you search for Python with opening range breakout, you'll see, hey, there's not any results here. Everyone's just talking about it, but no one's actually coding it. So most people are just looking at their screen for a certain amount of time every day and waiting for this breakout to occur. But we don't want to do that. We want to automate this with some Python code, and it's a very easy strategy to code, so why not do it? All right, let's go ahead and get started with coding this opening range breakout strategy. And we're going to start from scratch with a new editor. If you'll remember, in the last video, we created this stock strategy table and this strategy table. So our strategy table has a couple of strategies in it: opening range breakout and breakdown. And then we also have this stock strategy table, which basically is just a foreign key reference to a stock and a foreign key reference to a strategy ID. So in the last video, we created a filter for stocks that had recently closed at new highs, and we marked 10 of them as possible candidates that we had a bullish bias on that we would use to trade our opening range breakout strategy on. And so once we marked these stocks from our interface, these stocks were actually added to this table called stock strategy. And so there's a foreign key reference to the stock in the stock ID column of this stock strategy table. And there's also a reference to the strategy that we're going to apply. In this case, it is the opening range breakout strategy. So now all we need to do is code the script that looks at this table, finds the stocks that are in it, and it'll say, hey, check on these stocks and determine whether they are breaking out of the opening range and issue a buy order on them, right? And so let's go ahead and get started coding this script from scratch. So I'm in my Visual Studio Code editor, and I'm going to create a new script called opening range breakout.py. And we'll code this one from scratch. So the first thing we'll do is import some libraries that we'll need. So we'll import SQLite 3 since we need to connect to the database to access that table. We're going to import our config, which already has our Alpaca API key inside. And we're going to import Alpaca Trade API as Trade API. And we're also going to import a date time as date in case we need to work with any date and time objects. Okay. So the first thing we'll do is create our database connection. So I'm going to do connection equals SQLite3.open. And then we have a DB file variable here. We'll also create our row factory. So we'll set our row factory here equal to SQLite3.row, and this just makes sure that instead of returning a tuple, we'll be able to return a SQLite row object that's a little easier to access attributes of. We'll create a new connection cursor, and then with that, we can start querying our database. And so what we'll do first is we'll get our strategy record, okay? And so I'll say select ID from strategy where name equals opening range breakout. And this will just get the ID of the strategy that we're going to apply here. So I'll do cursor fetch one, okay? And then I'll say strategy equals cursor fetch one. And let's just print that out and let's run this and make sure we're on the right track. Okay, strategy. Okay. Run that. SQLite 3 has no attribute open because it's actually SQLite3.connect. Okay, so that'll open the database file, and it looks like we got a SQLite row object, right? And so the attribute is actually ID like that, right? Okay, yeah. So we're fetching, we expect a single row, and then we're going to access the ID attribute. And so the ID is just one, right? So I'll store that in strategy ID. And this is really just to get the ID of the strategy. That way we can query our stock strategy table for stocks that reference this strategy ID. So I'll do that now. So I'll do another cursor.execute, and let's just get all of our records with strategy ID 1. And so I'll do select symbol, comma name, from stock, join stock, strategy on, stock strategy dot stock ID equals stock dot ID, where stock strategy dot strategy ID equals question mark. Okay, and then we're going to pass it the strategy ID we just retrieved from our database, right? And I should do a whole tutorial probably on joins, but hopefully you're getting the idea here if you're not already familiar with SQL joins. But we're joining two tables together, and then this allows us to select the symbol and name from the stock table, but also lets us join the stock strategy table so that we can get all the stocks with stock strategies with strategy ID equal to 1 up here, right? And so we'll say stocks equals cursor dot fetch all, and let's just print stocks here, run it, and we have a lot of SQLite row objects. But we only really care about the symbols that we want to trade, right? So I can do symbols equals, and I'll do a list comprehension. I'll do a stock symbol for stock in stock. So I'll loop over the stocks in line here, and then aggregate all the symbols together. And now if I print the symbols, you'll see like Dolby, IQ stock, that China ETF, Datto, and so forth. So those are the symbols that we want to trade. So now we've selected the symbols that are in our database that are the candidates that we're going to use to trade with this opening range breakout strategy, which is strategy ID number 1. What we'll want to do next is fetch the bars, the minute bars for each of these stock symbols. And if you look at the Warrior Trading chart here in the article, you see they're using the 15-minute bar here, 15-minute bars. I've heard some people use 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, but the point is you need some time frame that you want to use for the opening bar, and you're going to calculate the high and the low and calculate that range. So the high of the first bar minus the low. And so what we're going to do is capture the first 15 minutes after the market opens and calculate what this range is. So to do that, we're going to need to fetch the minute bars, or the 15-minute bars, using the Alpaca API, and we'll use the Polygon integration in order to do that. And so what I'll do here is create an instance of the trade API. So I'll do trade API.rest, and we can actually copy this from one of our other scripts if we would like. So like populate prices, for instance, we have this trade API.rest here. And so opening range breakout, I'll copy that. And so this is our instance. It just needs our API key, secret key, and our base URL. And then we have an instance of the API, right? And so then we'll do for symbol in symbols. And so for each of the symbols, we can just grab the minute bars. And so the reason we'll do the minute bars, even though we care about the opening 15 minutes, we're also going to care about the minute bars for the rest of the day, because after those first 15 minutes, we're going to calculate the high and low of that 15-minute bar. But then each minute bar after that, we'll check to see if that minute bar closed above the high of that opening range that we calculated. So why not just fetch all the minute bars? That way we don't have to make multiple requests, right? So I'm going to capture the minute bar. So I'll say minute bars equals API.polygon.historic ag v2. Okay. And then it accepts the symbol, the time frame. So I'm going to say 1 minute, and I'll say from equals, And so I'm only going to capture the minute bars for the current date, right? So we're not storing all the historical minute bars, at least not yet. All we really want is, so tomorrow is Friday, October 30th. So when it's tomorrow and I run this, I want it to fetch the October 30th bars. But let's say it's just today for now. So I'm going to do 2020, 10, 29, so October 29th. And I'll do 2 equals 2020, 2020, 10, 29, right? And then you can put this .df, and then you'll get it in a pandas data frame, your result. So that's my minute bars. So I'm going to fetch the minute bars for each of the symbols. And so let's print the minute bars and make sure this works. So print the symbol and then print the minute bars. And I'll delete that line and run it. Okay. And you see we have a bunch of pandas data frames, and then we get a pandas data frame for each one of our symbols. So Dolby, those are the minute bars for today that I have. And then IQ, those are the minute bars for IQ, and so forth, right? So we have minute bars for each of those symbols, Stitch Fix and WD-40. So that's looking pretty good so far. So what do we need to do with these minute bars? So this is for the whole day. So all I really care about at first is the first 15-minute candlestick, right? So we have the minute candlestick. So really, let's just get this subset from 9:30 New York time till 9:45. And so what I can do here is define some constants. And so what I'm going to do is set current date equals to date.today.iso format, which will get me a date in this format here. Okay. And for right now, since it's not actually that'll work. Yeah. So current day. So this is actually going to be the 29th. So instead of just hard coding it there, this will be dynamic. So whenever this script is running on any given day, it'll know the current date. Okay. So that's in. And then now this timestamp format here, let's go ahead and get these in a format that we can index this data frame on. And so what I'll do is say start minute bar equals, and let's see, I can do an F string here. And then instead of the 29th like that, I'll do a current date, and I'll put this afterwards. So the current date will get substituted, and then that'll get us from 9:30. So that'll be the start minute bar. And then we can just do the end minute bar. So the end minute bar of current date, and this would be at 9:45, right? Okay. And so what we can do is just get the minimum and maximum low. So I can get the minimum low of the first 15 minutes and the maximum high of the first 15 minutes, right? And so I have all of the minute bars, okay? So I'll keep printing the symbol, and then I'll say I'm gonna create a mask. So I'm gonna only select a subset of this entire data frame. So I'm gonna do opening range mask equals, and I'll say the minute bars index is greater than or equal to the start minute bar. So I'm only going to want rows in this data frame where the minute bars index, so this is the index, the timestamp, is greater than or equal to 9:30. And then I'm going to say ampersand and minute bars dot index is less than end minute bar. And so less than 9:45 will get me 9:44 till the end of 9:44, which would be 9:45. And that'll get me the first 15 minutes. So that's my mask. So that's a condition, right? And then I can just say opening range bars equals minute bars dot loc opening range mask. And then let's print that out. Print opening range bars. Okay. And date time has no attribute today. Oh, I need to say from date time import date. Okay, now let me run it. And I just ran it and I got nothing. And that's because it is actually midnight when I'm recording this right now. I just turned October 30th at midnight, so there's no VARs yet. So let me change this current date back to 10/29. So 2020 10/29, and I'm up late. Okay, so now I'm going to change it to the 29th temporarily, and you'll see how this actually works while the market is open. So if this ran tomorrow morning on Friday, for instance, right, it would get all the minute bars for Stitch Fix, for instance. So I'd get from 9:30 to 9:44, and that goes from 9:44 to 9:45. And so I'd get this open, high, low, close for the first 15 minutes, right? And so to get the range of this opening 15 minutes, all I have to do is get whatever the low was for that 15-minute period and the high for that 15-minute period. And so let's get that. So I'm going to say the opening range low is equal to the opening range bars low dot min, and then the opening range high equals opening range bars high dot max, and that'll get me the opening range there, right? And so the opening range itself would just be the opening range high minus opening range close. Okay, and so if I print each of those, opening range low, opening range high, and then print the opening range, let's see how that looks. And this needs to be low, not close, opening range low. Okay, and you see we get this nice little range here. So you can see for WD-40, the range was 356 because the high for that 15 minutes, right, was 247.50, right? So 247.50 you'll see at 9:34, and the low was 243.94, which is right here in this column, right? And so the range is 356, okay? And then you see we did that for each stock. And so the range here, what we want to do is find, if it was this stock, for instance, we'd want to find the next minute bar where, or the next time or the first time in the day when the price crosses above the high for the 15 minutes, for the first 15 minutes, right? And so if at 10 a.m., for instance, it crossed above 247.50, the price, then we'd enter the trade right there. And then we'd have our stop loss set to that price minus 356, right? And we could take profit at 247.50 plus 356, so at about 251, right? And so we're shooting for a kind of a 1-to-1 profit to loss ratio here, and we're expecting more wins. If you want to get more aggressive, you could say, 1.5 times the opening range or 2 times the opening range. You could eventually do a trailing stop, so you could kind of scale in and out. But the point is that you're setting your profit taking point and your profit loss, or your stop loss, all at the same time, and it's very clear. There's no ambiguity there. It's that 356 number there. Okay, so we have our opening range now. And so now all we need to do is think about how often we're going to run this. So what we'll do is run this program, our cron scripts. We mentioned that we can run a script periodically, and I've kind of set this up already for this video. But what we're going to do is run this opening range breakout script every minute. So with our cron syntax, it's commented out with this pound or hashtag sign. But if you do */1, that's in the minutes place, it will run the script every minute, right? And so what do we want to do? We'll run the script every minute. And so we'll be checking our list of stocks. We'll get the first 15 minutes of price action, and we'll have that range defined. And since we're already fetching all of the 1-minute bars, then all we got to do is the next time it runs through, we'll already have the minute bars, right? And so we'll find the first minute bar where the close of that minute bar is above the opening range high, And if it does close above the opening range high, we're going to place a trade. Okay, so let's find, now that we've filtered down to the first 15 minutes, let's find the first close that's after that 15-minute period. And so we'll need a different mask. So this opening range mask is the first 15 minutes, but let's do an after opening range mask. And this will get everything after 9:45. So after opening range mask equals minute bars dot index greater than or equal to end minute bar. Okay, and the end minute bar is at 9:45. So we're going to find the minute bars that are after 9:45, right? So greater than or equal to end minute bar, and then we'll say after opening range bars equal to minute bars dot loc, and then after opening range mask. Okay, and we've covered how to manipulate data frames and then slice them down in some of the other videos, so I'm not going to go over all that again. Just know that you can specify this filter here and then filter down the rows in a pandas data frame, and then we'll get the after opening range bars, right? So if I print these, right, and I run this, minutes is not defined, and that's because it's minute bars. Okay, and if I run this, you'll see how now we get the first 15 minutes, right? First 15 minutes, and then after that, I'm printing from 9:45 on, right? And then all we need to do is as we run the script over and over again every minute, there'll be a new minute bar, and once we see there's a close that is above this 247.50, right? Then we can place this trade. So for WD40, for instance, for today, since I'm running this on the 29th, the opening range was 350 and the high was 247.50. And then you'll see there was a close here at 9:54, at least, that was 248.80, right? And so we would have entered that trade. And then if you add 356 to it, right, that would have been what, 252, 253-ish, right? So we would have set a target price of like 251, right? Or a target price of 252-ish. And then we would have had a stop loss, right, of 243.94, right? But you see later in the day, this close, we would have actually made a good profit here, right? Because it eventually went up to 253, 254. So that would have been a quick day trading profit there on WD40 if we had run the strategy for October 29th. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Now, if it never closed above the range, if it went just straight down at the beginning of the day, we would have never entered the trade, right? So there would be no loss there. And then if we entered the trade and it went against us, we'd limit our losses at 243.94. So limit it to a small loss, but we're expecting more wins than losses. Okay, so that's how we get the bars after our opening range. And so now all we have to do is figure out how to enter the trade. So now that we have this way of getting all of the bars that happened after the opening range, all we have to do is filter them down and filter down to only rows where the close is greater than our opening range high, right? And so if there are any rows that match that criteria, when we run the script, when our cron script runs, right, then we know that we can place the trade, right? Because we know that bar closed above the opening range high. Okay, so let's filter down our opening range bars, right? So we'll say after opening range breakout equals to after opening range bars, and then we'll filter this down to after opening range bars close is greater than opening range high. Okay, and so if we find this will return a data frame where the close of any row is greater than the opening range high that we calculated, right? And so we'll say if not after opening range breakout dot empty, then we know if this returns any rows, then we know we had an opening range breakout, right? And so we'll calculate a price. So we'll say limit price equals after opening range breakout. And then we'll just get the first bar, right? We're going to filter down to all the bars after the opening range where the close is greater than the opening range high. And then we're just going to filter that down to closes above that opening range high, right? And then we can just select the first bar, the first minute bar where that was true, right? And so I'll just get the index location of 0, so the first one, get the close, and that'll be our limit price. So I'll print limit price, right? And yeah, let's print the opening range breakout after opening range breakout, just to show what that looks like and make sure I explained it in a clear way. Okay, so filtering it down, and let's see. All right, so you'll see we went through WD-40. We have this first 15 minutes of bar data that we have available. That's how we calculated our opening range. Then we have the after opening range, so starting at 9:45, right? And then we filter down this after 9:45 data frame to only rows where the close is above 247.50. And then that gets us this breakout data frame, right? This after opening range breakout. And you see all of these have a close that's greater than 247.50, right? And so the first one, index 0, was at 9:54. And that's why I'm using this close, which is 248.80, right? And I printed out that limit price. So technically we could have had a WebSocket like listening for price data and fired off the order like the second the price went above 247.50. But I also think it's nice to look at a minute bar and then get additional confirmation that the close was above a certain price. So we're using the minute bars in this case, and we're just doing an API request every single minute to check on that minute bar. So we have our limit price, and so if we have that, let's go ahead and log this out so that we can show what we're doing. That way it'll appear in our logs, and we'll say placing order for symbol at limit price, and then closed above, and this needs to be an F string. I'll put an F in front of there. Closed above, and we'll say opening range high and at, and then we'll also log after opening range breakout .ilc0. So we're going to record information about the bar where it actually broke out above the opening range high, and so we're logging that to a file. And so when our cron job runs, we'll have data logged to it about what happened, because we're not going to be monitoring this really, right? Okay, so I got that. I can delete that part. Okay, and then now we just need to place the actual order. So Alpaca has a submit order function. And so if we look at the Alpaca Trade API Python and bracket order, we're going to do a bracket order. I have a video on this in case you don't know that concept, but here's an example of submitting a bracket order that I'm going to copy from their GitHub so I don't have to write it again. And so here it is. So API.submitOrder, it needs a symbol. We have a symbol because we're in the loop. What's our side? We're on the buy side. We're going to buy. The type, we'll do a limit order. And sure, let's do quantity 100 is fine. Time and force just for the day. Order class is bracket. And take profit. So we're going to take profit right at this limit price plus our opening range, right? So we're going to do a limit price plus opening range. So it'd be 247.50 plus 350, whatever. And then our stop price would be the opposite, limit price minus opening range, right? So if we do that, I think we're in pretty good shape. And this is just paper trading right now. In our config file, we can switch it over as soon as we're happy and want to convert it to live trading with our brokerage account. And so now I'm going to run this and let's see how it goes. So I try to run that. Okay, limit orders require a limit price. And I didn't specify limit price. I just said the take profit and stop loss. So I'll do limit price equals limit price, just like that. Run it again. And look at that. So it looks like it placed a bunch of orders. So if I would have run it today, this is what this strategy would have looked like. And I'll go to my Alpaca account. So I'm in my Alpaca account, and let's see what would have happened today. And so you see, if I run this strategy, right, it issued a whole bunch of bracket orders. So you'll see Dolby here, right? It submitted a limit buy at 72.27, and then we have a stop loss. So the opening range was pretty small on Dolby, so we have a stop limit. Our limit here, or our stop loss here, is 71.67, and then we take profits at 72.87. So 72.27 plus 60 cents minus 60 cents, and then so we have one for each of those, and then the limit buy 248.80, right, and the limit sell 252.36, and so that would have been profitable, as we saw. Actually, we can use our app, right, to check it out real quick. Let's see what would have happened today. So I'm going to go to run the web server here. Okay. Run the web server. And let's just see for WD-40, right? So just for today, for instance, so if we look at WD-40 and I do the 15-minute time frame for the 29th, for instance, you see this worked out, really well today, because there's 9:30, right? So 9:30 to 9:45, and then bam, right at 9:45, we enter the trade, and there's this huge green bar, and it just trends up the rest of the day. So definitely didn't get stopped out, and if anything, we take profits fairly early. There's alternate approaches where you might want to just sell it at the end of the day, or maybe scale out, maybe sell some right whenever it first goes up by that range, and then hang on to some in case it keeps trending up. So there's a variety of ways to approach that. So yeah, it worked out pretty well for WD-40 today, it looks like. So we've confirmed that we can calculate the range, we can calculate the breakout, and we can place the order with our stop loss and our take profit points. So there's nothing else to do to this trade. There's nothing else to manage on this trade, because our profit and our entry and exit are already set up when this breakout first happens, which is great. And there's one more thing that we need to take into account. The problem right now is if I run it again, it would actually place the order again. So what we want to do is make sure that we don't already have an order for that particular stock. So one way to do that is we can check on the orders that we currently have. So at the beginning, when this program runs, what we could do, after we have this API object, we can say orders equals API.list orders. So there's a method that lets us list our current orders, and I can just say existing order symbols equals order.symbol for order in orders. So we're building the list of symbols that we already have orders for, and then as we're looping through, we can just check if only place this order if symbol not in existing order symbols, right? Symbol order symbols. Okay, so if the symbol is not in existing order symbols, then we'll place the order. Otherwise, let's just log print if you already an order for symbol skipping. Okay, so I'll do that, and if I run this one more time, you should say, yeah, so you see how it's saying already an order skipping. So that's good. So we already have the order in, and it's not going to run it over and over again. Okay. And so now I'm going to go to my cron job. Okay. And I'll run cron tab -e. We already talked about cron in our earlier discussions. And so if I comment this out, okay. And then also I'm going to go ahead and delete these trades, right? So I'm going to cancel, cancel, Actually, I'll just cancel a couple of them, right? And then we'll make sure this runs, right? So I'll do that. Okay. So I'm going to come that out. Then every minute, it's going to run this opening range breakout script, and it's going to log the output. So anything I printed is going to go to this trade log. Okay. So I'll write that out and quit. Hit OK. And it's 12:23 now, 12:24. And it actually just ran automatically. And so if I print it out, you'll see I'm just having it log all of the output, right? So I'm going to open this log real quick and see if we can find the WD-40 log. Oh, there it is. So it says placing order for WDFC at 248.80, closed above 247.50 at, and then I'm printing the minute bar where it closed above the opening high. So 954. So good. We have good logging data in there, and I'm not going to print this whole data frame. So just to clean this up, I'll go ahead and delete these data frames that we're printing out just for debugging purposes, right? And so we'll delete that, delete all these print statements. And then instead of the 29th, we're going to change this back to today. And then we'll let this run for the 30th of October when the market opens and see what happens. And if we had any errors, if there's anything to correct, you know, I didn't look over the symbols we're trading that much. Yeah, and let's just see how it goes and what we can improve on based on what we find out after running this the first time. So yeah, that's how the opening range breakout strategy works. That's how you code it in Python. And we're automatically picking up stocks that we marked that we had a bullish bias on. We're picking those up from our database dynamically, calculating the date dynamically, connecting to our API, automatically retrieving the opening range without doing anything manually, and we're fetching all the minute bars for all of our candidate stocks, and automatically placing bracket orders with a take profit price and a stop loss. Yeah, and so that's how you automate the opening range breakout strategy. And yeah, that's it for this video. Stay tuned for the next couple of videos. We'll add an authentication layer, some notifications and alerts, and we'll also talk about how to deploy this thing to a server. So thanks a lot for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.